I thought marrying a billionaire would be a fairy tale, but when his sister pushed me down in front of 200 wedding guests, calling me worthless trash, I never expected what my husband would do next. His words didn't just shock everyone, they changed everything forever. Stay until the end because what happens next will completely blow your mind. Trust me, you won't see this twist coming. My name is Valeria, and 6 months ago, I was just a regular girl working at Murphy's Diner on Route 9. You know the type of place, cracked vinyl booths, coffee that's been sitting too long, and regulars who know your life story better than you do. I never imagined that serving pie and refilling coffee cups would lead me to the love of my life, let alone into a world I never knew existed. It was a rainy Tuesday when Adrian first walked through those glass doors. He looked completely out of place in his simple jeans and white t-shirt, but there was something about him that made me look twice. Maybe it was the way he said thank you like he actually meant it, or how he left a $20 tip on a $6 meal. When he asked for my number, I almost said no. Guys who looked like him usually had girlfriends who looked nothing like me, but Adrian was different. For 3 months, we went on the most normal dates you could imagine. Movies, walks in the park, dinner at places with paper napkins instead of cloth ones. He drove a regular car, lived in what I thought was a modest apartment, and never once made me feel like I wasn't enough. When he told me he worked in technology, I figured he was some kind of computer programmer. I had no idea I was dating Adrian Blackwell, the founder of 3 tech companies and one of the youngest billionaires in the country. The truth came out when he proposed. We were sitting on the dock behind what I thought was his friend's lake house, watching the sunset paint the water gold. When he got down on one knee with a ring that probably cost more than my annual salary, my first thought wasn't yes. It was panic, because suddenly everything made sense. The lake house was his. The car he sometimes drove was his too, along with about 10 others. And that modest apartment? It was his guest house. I stared at him, this man I'd fallen completely in love with, and realized I didn't know him at all. When I asked him why he lied, he took my hands and said something I'll never forget. I didn't lie about the only thing that mattered, how I feel about you. Everything else is just details. He was wrong, though. Everything else wasn't just details, especially not to his family. Adrian's mother, Patricia, was polite but distant when we first met. She asked careful questions about my background, my family, my plans for the future. I could see her doing math in her head, trying to figure out if I was after her son's money. But it was his sister Sophia who made it crystal clear that I would never be welcome in their world. Sophia was everything I wasn't. Tall, elegant, with the kind of confidence that comes from never having to check your bank account before buying something. She had this way of looking at me like I was something unpleasant she'd stepped in. During our first family dinner, she spent the entire evening talking about people I'd never heard of, places I'd never been, and experiences I could never afford. When Adrian tried to include me in the conversation, she'd smile sweetly and say things like, "Oh, but Valeria probably wouldn't know about that." The engagement period was 6 months of walking on eggshells. Every family gathering was a test I felt like I was failing. Sophia would make comments about the wedding budget, suggesting we tone things down since I probably wasn't used to events of this scale. She'd casually mention how Adrian's ex-girlfriend came from such a good family, or how important it was to marry someone who understood the responsibilities that came with wealth. Adrian tried to shield me from most of it, but I heard the whispered conversations. I saw the looks. I knew exactly what his family and friends thought of me, that I was some small-town girl who got lucky and trapped their golden boy. The wedding planning was a nightmare wrapped in silk and roses. Every vendor seemed to know I didn't belong. They'd address all their questions to Sophia or Patricia, looking right through me like I wasn't even there. When I tried to express preferences about flowers or music, Sophia would override me with suggestions about what was more appropriate or more elegant. By the time our wedding day arrived, I felt like a guest at my own celebration. But when I woke up on our wedding morning, none of that mattered anymore. I was marrying the man I loved, and whatever came after, we'd face together. The ceremony was beautiful in a way that took my breath away. Adrian had chosen the garden behind his estate, with white roses climbing every available surface and string lights creating a canopy of stars even in daylight. As I walked down that petal-covered aisle with my father, I saw Adrian waiting for me at the altar, and suddenly all the months of tension and judgment fell away. In that moment, it was just us. Our vows brought tears to eyes throughout the crowd. When Adrian promised to love me exactly as I was, for exactly who I was, I felt like the luckiest woman alive. Even Sophia managed to keep her fake smile in place as we kissed and officially became husband and wife. The reception started perfectly. The ballroom was transformed into something from a fairy tale, with crystal chandeliers casting rainbow light across tables dressed in cream and gold. I'd never seen anything so beautiful, and for the first time since the engagement, I felt like maybe I could belong in this world after all. Adrian and I had our first dance to the same song we'd danced to in my tiny apartment kitchen 3 months into dating. As he spun me around that polished floor, I whispered, "I can't believe this is real." He pulled me closer and said, "Get used to it, Mrs. Blackwell." The dinner was incredible, course after course of food I couldn't even pronounce, served by waiters who moved like dancers. Adrian held my hand under the table and pointed out funny things about various guests, making me laugh until my cheeks hurt. His business partner, Lucas, made a toast about finding true love in unexpected places, and even Patricia raised her glass with what looked like genuine warmth. Then came the moment when tradition called for family toasts. Sophia stood up, elegant in her burgundy silk dress, champagne glass raised high. The room fell quiet, as everyone turned to listen to the sister of the groom. I expected another polite but cold speech about welcoming me to the family. What I got instead changed everything. "I've watched my little brother his entire life," Sophia began, her voice carrying clearly across the silent room. "I've seen him work hard, build his companies, and achieve more than most people dream of. Adrian has always had excellent judgment in business." She paused, her eyes finding mine across the room, and I felt my stomach start to drop. "Which is why I'm so surprised by his choice in marriage." The room went dead silent. I felt like everyone was staring at me, which they probably were. Adrian's hand tightened on mine, but Sophia wasn't done. "Valeria seems like a sweet girl, really she does. But let's be honest about what this is." Her smile was sharp as a knife. "A waitress from nowhere who happened to serve coffee to a billionaire. Some might call that fate, others might call it opportunism." I heard gasps from around the room. Adrian started to stand, but Sophia held up her hand. "I'm not finished." Her voice got louder, more confident, like she was feeding off the shocked attention. "We all know what this is about. It's not about love. It's about money. Valeria saw her chance with my naive brother and she took it. And now we all have to pretend this is some great romance instead of what it really is, a gold-digging scheme." The words hit me like physical blows. I felt tears burning my eyes, my face heating with humiliation. Around the room, I could see guests looking uncomfortable, some whispering behind their hands. But Sophia still wasn't finished with me. "I mean, look at her," she continued, gesturing toward me with her champagne glass. "Do you really think someone like that belongs in our world? She can barely hold a conversation about anything that matters. She doesn't understand our responsibilities, our traditions, our way of life. She's nothing but a simple little diner girl who got incredibly lucky." Adrian shot to his feet so fast his chair fell backward, but Sophia was on a roll now, her voice getting shriller and more vicious. "She's going to embarrass this family at every turn. Mark my words, within a year she'll have spent a fortune on things she doesn't understand, made a fool of herself at every important event, and probably gotten pregnant to secure her position. This whole marriage is a joke, and everyone in this room knows it." The room was so quiet I could hear my own heartbeat. I felt like I was going to be sick. All those months of trying to prove I belonged, and here was Adrian's own sister destroying me in front of everyone who mattered in his world. But then Sophia took it one step further. She stepped away from her table and walked directly over to where Adrian and I were sitting. The crowd parted like she was some kind of queen processing through her court. When she reached our table, she leaned down close to my face, her champagne breath hot on my cheek. "You don't belong here," she hissed, loud enough for nearby tables to hear. "You will never belong here. And deep down, you know it." That's when she did something I never saw coming. Sophia grabbed my arm, her manicured nails digging into my skin, and yanked me to my feet. Before I could react, before Adrian could move, she shoved me hard in the chest with both hands. I stumbled backward, my heel catching in my wedding dress, and went down hard on the marble floor. The sound echoed through the ballroom like a gunshot. My beautiful dress tore, my carefully styled hair came undone, and I felt the sting of tears I couldn't hold back anymore. 200 people watched Sophia Blackwell physically assault me at my own wedding reception. The silence that followed was deafening. I could hear the rustle of fabric as people shifted in their chairs, the clink of glasses being set down, someone's shocked intake of breath. From my position on the floor, I could see faces staring down at me, some horrified, some embarrassed, some almost curious about what would happen next. Sophia stood over me, breathing hard. Her perfect composure finally cracked. "There," she said, her voice shaking with rage. "That's where you belong." On the ground. And that's when my husband showed me exactly who he really was. Adrian moved faster than I'd ever seen anyone move. One second he was standing frozen by our table, the next he was between Sophia and me, his face dark with a fury I didn't know he possessed. But he didn't touch his sister. Instead, he helped me to my feet with gentle hands, checked to make sure I wasn't hurt, and then turned to face the room full of guests. "Everyone stay exactly where you are," he said, his voice carrying to every corner of the ballroom. It wasn't loud, but there was something in his tone that made it impossible to ignore. "I have something to say." He walked to the front of the room, where the band had been playing just moments before. Every eye followed him. The silence was so complete, I could hear my own breathing. "My sister just physically assaulted my wife," Adrian said, his words crystal clear, "in front of all of you. At our wedding reception." He turned to look at Sophia, who was still standing near our table, her face now pale. "She called the woman I love a gold digger, questioned her worth as a person, and then put her hands on her in violence." Adrian's voice got stronger with each word. "I want everyone in this room to understand something about my wife. Valeria worked 2 jobs to put herself through college. She spent her weekends volunteering at the local food bank. When her neighbor's house burned down last year, she organized the entire town to help rebuild it. She has more character in her little finger than most of us have in our entire bodies." He paused, scanning the faces in the crowd. "But even if none of that were true, even if she were exactly what my sister accused her of being, it wouldn't matter, because I love her. And no one, not family, not friends, not anyone, gets to treat her like that in my presence." Then Adrian did something that shocked everyone, including me. He pulled out his phone and made a call right there, in front of everyone. "Security? Yes, it's Adrian. I need you to remove Sophia Blackwell from the premises immediately. No, she's not welcome back." He paused, listening. "I don't care if she's my sister. She just assaulted my wife." The room erupted. People started talking all at once, chairs scraping as guests turned to each other in amazement. Sophia's face went from pale to red to white again. "You can't be serious," she said, but her voice cracked. "I've never been more serious about anything in my life," Adrian replied. "Security will be here in 2 minutes. You can leave with them, or you can leave on your own. But you're leaving." But he still wasn't done. "I'm also removing you from the board of Blackwell Industries, effective immediately. Your trust fund access is suspended pending review. And consider your invitation to every family event for the next year revoked." The gasps that followed were audible throughout the room. In their world, what Adrian had just done was social and financial murder. Sophia looked around desperately, maybe hoping someone would come to her defense, but the faces looking back at her ranged from shocked to disgusted. No one was going to argue with a man defending his wife from assault. "Adrian, please," she whispered, all her earlier confidence gone. "I'm your sister." "My sister wouldn't have laid a hand on my wife," he said simply. When security arrived, two polite but firm men in black suits, Sophia had no choice but to leave. She walked out of that ballroom with her head high, but everyone could see her hands shaking. After she was gone, Adrian returned to me. He took my hands and spoke to the room one more time. "I apologize that you all had to witness that," he said, "but I'm not sorry it happened, because now everyone knows exactly where I stand. My wife is the most important person in my world. Anyone who has a problem with that can leave with my sister." Nobody moved. Then Adrian turned to me, and in front of all those people, he said the words that made me fall in love with him all over again. "I'm sorry that happened to you. You didn't deserve any of it, but I need you to know something. You don't just belong in my world. You make my world better just by being in it." The applause started slowly, with Lucas clapping from his table. Then Patricia stood up and joined in. Within moments, the entire room was applauding, not just polite wedding applause, but real, sustained clapping that seemed to go on forever. That's when I knew everything was going to be okay. The rest of the evening was magical in a way I never expected. Without Sophia's negative energy poisoning the air, the reception became the celebration it was supposed to be. Guests came up to me throughout the night to apologize for what had happened and to welcome me genuinely to the family. Patricia pulled me aside during dessert and said something I'll never forget. "I raised my children to stand up for what's right. Tonight, Adrian showed me I did at least one thing correctly." As Adrian and I danced our last dance of the evening, he whispered in my ear, "Are you okay with what I did? I know she's my sister, but—" I stopped him with a kiss. "You chose love over fear," I told him. "You chose us over what people might think. You chose to protect instead of keeping peace. I've never been prouder to be your wife." 6 months later, Sophia apologized. It took losing everything she thought mattered to realize that treating people with cruelty has consequences. Adrian forgave her because that's who he is, but our relationship is different now. She understands that I'm not going anywhere, and that her brother will always choose love over loyalty to people who abuse that loyalty. Our marriage is stronger now than it would have been if that night had gone perfectly, because when life tested us, we chose each other, and we always will. That wedding night taught me that real love isn't about fairy tales or perfect families. It's about finding someone who will stand up for you when it matters most, even when it costs them something. Adrian didn't just defend me that night, he showed me what it means to be truly loved. If this story gave you chills, smash that like button and subscribe for more incredible true stories. Drop a comment telling me what you would have done in Adrian's position. And don't forget to hit the bell icon because next week's story is even more shocking. Until then, remember, you deserve someone who will choose you every single time.